Whittaker Weekly is a 3-episode anime discussion podcast where two brothers discuss a show of their choice. The show can be anything from a current season flop to a decades-old classic. What are they going to talk about next? Who knows? They sure don't. And this is Whittaker Weekly. Let's get right into it. All right, first, the news. I came across a little bit of news the other day, and I couldn't wait to share it with everybody. There's going to be a special episode of Cells at Work that's going to air on December 26th.
Really?
Yep, it's a special episode. There's some news about it on Anime News Network. It's just a one-time thing. I'm not quite sure what the episode is about. I didn't bother reading it. I just saw the title and saw that it was coming out on the 26th, and I wanted to share it. So we're going to get a little bit more...
We do tend to go into things spoiler-free if we can.
Mm-hmm. But there's a little bit more Cells at Work coming out later on this year. Okay. Also, something that I'm personally very excited about, a manga that I've actually talked about on this show in the past during the recommendation of the week or, just throughout the show. Viz Media has announced the licenses to several new manga. And one of those is Komi Can't Communicate, which is the story about the high school girl who has trouble speaking to other people. She's just extremely shy. And she makes friends with somebody who's able to read situations like nobody else. He's really, really able to put things together. And she becomes friends with him. And through him, she's working on a goal to make 100 friends during her high school life. And it's a wonderful, just darling manga. It's really heartwarming. It's really, uplifting and fun. It's very, very funny. Especially if I really, really hope that they put the pun translator notes into the, for the character names, because the main boy's name is Tadano Hito. Tadano being the family name. Tadano is a way of saying just. Like Tadano Tamagos, like just an egg. Or like a regular egg. Hito is like a person.
So his name is just a person.
His name is just a guy. And he's completely average throughout the entire show, throughout the entire manga. There is this one scene where they get their report cards back, and Komi is really smart, so she does really, really well. One of their friends is really dumb, so they do really, really poorly. And Tadano, his score matches the class average for every single category. He is exactly average in every way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and there's other names that are puns all throughout the entire series. Like there's a girl whose name is Ohai Shuki. And she's constantly judging other girls' bust sizes. And Ohai Shiki is a play on Opai Ski, which means she likes breasts. So, yeah.
Okay then.
Yeah.
Okay
it's,
then. No, I was remembering that I was watching an episode of QI where they determined that there's no such thing as an average person. Where if you take any number of people, any size of group, and you average all of their stats, not one of them will match the average of all the stats combined.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so this guy is a literal impossibility.
You can go ahead and take that to Stephen Fry. But no, again, it's just a joke, but it's a wonderful series. I've been loving reading it, and I've already pre-ordered the first 2 issues.
I've been seeing a lot of her image a lot on Facebook. She's very memeable.
She is very memeable. She just has these wonderful expressions. Anyway, I don't want to spoil any of the manga. I'd rather have people go read it, and now they can go ahead and buy it in English as well. Fantastic. It's not coming out until, I think the first issue is coming out June of next year. But right after that, the next issues, I think, is coming out in August. So they're going to be releasing them pretty closely once they have them all translated and stuff. But yeah, one of the reasons that I'm excited for it is because I'm going to loan people the manga so they can read it themselves, because I want more people to read this manga. It's so good. And then just the other day, we got some news that Kingdom Hearts 3 has gone gold, which means that they have in the game publishing world or the game making world, that means they have finished programming the game, and it is ready to go ahead and make copies of the game and ship it out to the sellers. Okay, so
this has been in development hell for
a long time,
at least 6 years that I know of.
Oh, it's been they talked about Kingdom Hearts 3 back with the PS3 still, and they showed some tech demos for it on the PS3. But for people who aren't aware of it, the PS3 was a nightmare to program for. It was an absolute mess. The PS4, one of the great things about it when it first came out, Sony released this video where a guy who helped design the PS1 and the PS2, and he eventually became somebody at Sony of America that actually helped bring in developer talent and make second party or first party developers, like Insomniac Games and Naughty Dog. He helped bring them in to the original PlayStation, helped form their companies, and he went to those other companies and said, look, what do you guys want out of a console? And one of their biggest things was ease of development. One of the reasons people loved making games for the PS1 so much is that they could have a working demo ready in 4 months. They could have a working game in 4 months on the PS4. It wouldn't be a polished, finished game, but it would be workable.
Oh, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, any game dev worth their salt will tell you that you've got to have a functioning prototype as quickly as possible.
Yep. Whereas with the PS3, it was, a couple of years. Or for inexperienced ones, it would be that long. Probably shorter for more experienced people. But the PlayStation 3 was just a nightmare to program for. And that's one of the reasons PlayStation did so well with bringing in so many games and stuff near the beginning of its life for the PS4, just because, it was so much easier to make games for.
Okay.
But anyway, that's why Kingdom Hearts 3 moved over to the PS4, because it was a lot easier to program for it. Same thing with Final Fantasy 15.
Also, I think Kingdom Hearts 3, with how many delays it had and how often Disney would get new intellectual property during this period, that people were like, oh, and now this needs to be in Kingdom Hearts 3. And now this does.
Yeah, the thing is, though, they've already announced that this is the last Kingdom Hearts game with Sora. So this is wrapping up the main story of Kingdom Hearts. I don't doubt they're going to keep making Kingdom Hearts games. Probably start a new series with it. But yeah, Sora's story is wrapping up in this one.
Okay, so aren't there like 15 Kingdom Hearts games with spin-offs and everything?
I don't even. It's some absurd number.
Yeah,
it's just some absurd number.
But there's apparently 1, 2, and 13 spin-offs. Or side quests.
Well, there's one, and then there's Chain of Memories that came out for the Game Boy Advance, and nobody played it because they thought it was just a spin-off and didn't much care about it. But then when they started playing Kingdom Hearts 2, and they thought Kingdom Hearts 2 was going to pick up right where Kingdom Hearts 1 left off, that's not the case. It takes place a year after Kingdom Hearts 2, or Kingdom Hearts 1, and Chain of Memories was there to fill the gap. There's actual story that goes on that explains things about what happens between 1 and 2. So if you wanted to know what happened and why Sora's in this capsule at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2, and you're playing this other character, not Sora, for the first 2 hours, you need to play Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Which is sad because that game was terrible. I say that because I don't like card games. And it was a card-based system. Okay. Building your own decks and using decks to fight. Yeah, I did not enjoy it.
All right. The last bit of news we have is a little bit of joy that's come into our hearts this holiday season. There is a movie slated to come out in about a month or so called Once Upon a Deadpool.
Once Upon a Deadpool.
And the trailer for this is dropped, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
What's happened is, for those of you who, for you listeners out there, are you familiar with The Princess Bride?
If you're not, do yourself a favor and watch it.
The Princess Bride is a fantasy story that's starring Carrie Elwes, Robin Wright, Andre the Giant, and Mandy Patinkin. That takes place in this fantasy realm, but it's also bookended and interrupted by it's a story being read by Peter Falk to a very young Fred Savage in a very 1980s boy's bedroom. That exact same boy's bedroom with Fred Savage again is in that bed again, wondering what is he doing here, and Deadpool has duct taped him to the bed.
Wearing the same shirt.
Yes, wearing the same shirt, with all the same posters on the walls.
And
what am I doing?
It just starts off with this image of Fred Savage just looking right off camera. Just like, what on earth is going on? And then it cuts and it shows Deadpool looking right back at him. And then it cuts between the two and he's like, what's going on? I need your help, Fred Savage.
You exude childhood innocence. I am a grown man. No one exudes childhood innocence like you, Fred.
No one exudes childhood innocence like you, Fred. You're going to help me tell tell
A PG-13 version.
PG-13 version of Deadpool through the magic of child or like whatever he says. But he's got this book.
I need you almost as much as you need me.
I don't need you. I don't need you at all.
You do need me to untie you when we're done here.
And he flips up the bed, and Fred Savage has just been bound to the bed. He's like, "Oh, come on!" And yeah, so what they are doing is that they're telling the story of Deadpool, but they've intercut these scenes with Fred Savage to cut out more of the gore. That way, they can still progress
more
the
of the
story.
gore and the vulgarity, and they're making a PG-13 version of it in this way.
Yeah,
now you linked me to an article that was about that they made this movie to help raise money for charity.
Yes, Fox apparently has been trying to get Ryan Reynolds to make a PG-13 Deadpool for a very long time.
Generally speaking, PG-13 movies do capitalize better than R-rated movies.
But the thing is, Deadpool's not that type of character. Making a PG-13 Deadpool would just ruin the character. And I myself, I've never seen the Deadpool movies just because I don't much care for rated R content on the big screen. When I thought about a PG-13 Deadpool, I'm like, well, I don't want to see that. That's not going to be
true. It seems like so watered down.
Yeah, it's going to be watered down. It's not going to be the real Deadpool. And then
we saw this trailer.
And then I heard about I read about the article first and shared that with you.
Yeah.
And then you shared the trailer with me just the other day. And I couldn't stop laughing while I was watching the trailer because it's just so good. But yeah, Ryan Reynolds had two caveats in order to do a PG-13 Deadpool. First was that part of the proceeds had to go to charity. Okay. And it's a charity about fighting cancer.
Fantastic.
And I think it's $1 per ticket sale is going to go towards this charity.
That is a charity that Deadpool would support.
Mm-hmm. I think it's like F Cancer is what it's called. But I'm not going to go ahead and say the full word. We're trying to keep this family friendly. Anyway, and the caveat was that he needs to kidnap Fred Savage. And apparently they got the set and the costumes and everything, and they filmed everything they needed in just a day. So everything between him and Fred Savage took a single day of filming. But there's this great line in the trailer and it's just at the very end of it, where Fred Savage says, "I'm more of a Marvel guy myself." And he's like,
"We are Marvel.
We are Marvel." No, you're not. Like, yes, we are. No. You're
Marvel licensed by Fox.
Licensed by Fox. And you see, that'd be like the Beatles being produced by Nickelback. It's still music, but it sucks. And then,
you were nicer as a child, Fred Savage.
You were nicer as a child, Fred Savage. It's still music, but it sucks. It's like the Beatles the Beatles produced by Nickelback. It's still music, but it sucks.
Wow.
So
that is great.
Anyway, we've spent way too much time talking about news so far. But was there anything else we wanted to cover before we jumped into 3 episodes in?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
Another movie trailer dropped recently.
Okay.
Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu. Yes.
Which it's still Ryan Reynolds. And it's so Ryan Reynolds that I can't separate the Deadpool from the Pikachu as I'm watching it.
A lot of people can't.
And there's been some memes out there. My favorite one calls it says what I watched was the trailer. What I was expecting was something closer to the game.
We're starting to spike on the mics. Let's go ahead and keep our voices down. We're a bit too excited about this stuff.
What I actually got, Deadpool 3, The Great Mouse Detective.
Deadpool 3, The Great Mouse Detective. That's amazing. Well, I watched the trailer, and the trailer looks great. I really want to see it. Mm-hmm. And Mother's Basement actually talked about the trailer and how he said, like, he compared it to video game movies of old, where they're just trying to crash video game movies that have been made, where they're just trying to cram everything about the video game into a 90-minute film,
right? And
that doesn't work. One of his big go-tos was the Mario Brothers movie, which a lot of people hate. I personally love that movie simply because I was like 6 or 7 when that movie first came out, so I didn't know any better.
Mario Brothers is a great movie if, 1, you separate it from the canon of the rest of the Mario franchise, and 2, realize that the director not only didn't really care about the original Mario franchise, he went out to produce his own cyberpunk masterpiece, which is actually, it's really good if you just disassociate it from
the fact that they called it Mario Brothers.
Yes,
but that movie is a train wreck if you consider it a Mario Brothers movie. I still love it. It's
Bob Hoskins is amazing.
Mhm.
John Leguizamo's great.
It's a fun movie. I mean,
And
go ahead and at me if you want to, but no matter what you say about it, I'm still going to enjoy the movie.
Sure.
Like with Dragon Ball Evolution, the movie's pure garbage. I went to go watch it with my friends, and I just had a smile plastered on my face the entire time because it was so much fun. It's a terrible movie. I will agree with you every 7 days a week that the movie is bad. I love it. Anyway,
apparently one of the big problems with it was that
with what?
with the Dragon Ball Z movie was that American producers didn't believe American audiences would associate with a protagonist who still maintains a childlike innocence in his adulthood, and so they made him angsty.
Yeah, they did that.
So that's not the real Goku. But it's a real fun thing.
Childlike innocence is more like childlike ignorance for Goku. He's not very innocent. He's more just ignorant about everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, a Mother's Basement was talking about how, pretty much the only movie that is considered a good video game movie up to this point is the Mortal Kombat cult classic movie back in the day.
Sure.
I watched that. I love that movie. That movie's great. But he said one of the reasons this is going to work so well is because this is telling us a different story set in the Pokemon universe. This isn't trying to take,
it's not trying to recreate the event.
It's not trying to recreate the events of a 30-hour video game. It's trying to just tell us a game that's pretty much a point-and-click adventure game, and he pointed this out, and I kind of agree with him, point-and-click adventure games would make fantastic movies because they're inspired by movies themselves. They're meant to be playable movies. So, honestly,
which I absolutely loved the new remake of King's Quest.
Yeah, that was great.
With Christopher Lloyd.
And you could watch that as a movie.
Yeah.
You totally could. Especially that one great line where he walks off a pier and then just dies. And Christopher Lloyd says, "And the end." And the girl says, "Of the sentence?" And then he pops back up again. Yeah, that'd be fantastic as a movie.
That happens anytime he dies. It's one of three possible things when you make the wrong choice and die. The end. Of the sentence?
Of the sentence? And then he comes back.
And that is on one of the many occasions on which I died. Grandpa, get serious.
But, I mean, if there are any Hollywood producers out there, get on making a Monkey Island movie. That would be fantastic. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to 3 episodes in.
Let's do it.
All right. This week, I chose for us to watch Planet With. I don't know why it says plant with. Oh, it's probably because I typed it in manually, but it's planet with.
Yeah, I had that question last week too. So, like, what is this show called?
Yeah, my mistake. Yeah, my mistake.
It's fine.
All right.
It's fine.
Soya Kuroi, who is a high schooler living a peaceful life despite having no memories of his past. One day, however, his town is attacked by one of the mysterious Nebula weapons. Together with the cat-like sensei and the gothic Lolita Ginkgo, she's a Lolita, definitely. Soya gets dragged into a battle against 7 superheroes who protect the town. What is Soya's reason to fight? The answer lies in his memories.
Neat.
All right, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. And I think we both kind of started off with our list of things we liked about the show similarly.
Yes.
For me anyways, one of the first things we see Soya having a memory where somebody's making sure he's okay before that one person flies off, and several other people fly off as well, and they're all flying up towards this massive dragon in the sky while everything is on fire.
Right.
And then there's this massive explosion, and he gets thrown by this explosion, and then he wakes up in his bed, and he's like, "Oh, I had that dream about that. I had a weird dream." And he looks up what a dream with a dragon means
growth or a big change coming.
Growth or a big change. Good luck, and not like it's not telling him good luck. It's saying you're going to have good luck.
Yes.
Type thing. And so as he is reading this, the door opens and we're introduced to Ginkgo.
Yes.
The gothic Lolita.
She's a green-haired French maid.
Yeah.
The anime maid trope.
It's an anime maid trope, yeah. I mean, she doesn't have the short French maid skirt, but
it's longer. It's a
European maid outfit.
Yes.
is typically what it is. But she comes in and tells him that his breakfast is ready after teasing him because he freaks out, and she's like, "Oh, did I walk in on you on a bad moment?" And he's like, "No,
What
you
are you
didn't.
talking about?
What are you talking about? Get out of here!" And so they go and he eats breakfast, and we see the entire thing is just.
And so he starts eating breakfast, and there's just this giant cat-headed cat person sitting there. And it reminds me a little bit of one of the characters from Azumanga Daioh. A little bit. Just in the fact that there's just this weird character standing there with eyes open that never blink.
Okay.
It's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing.
It's a very different character design.
Yeah, I can kind of get that vibe. The only thing is that in Azumanga Daioh, the only time we see that character alive, I would say, is in somebody's dreams. Every other time we see that character, it's a stuffed animal.
Yeah. So this thing looks like a living stuffed animal, basically.
Yes.
The head is too big to be supported by the body that it's on, and it's.
But it eats a breakfast of a massive head of cabbage,
and it opens up with a full mouth of human teeth,
and just starts eating this cabbage.
It's so weird.
And I just thought to myself, this right here is the perfect setup for letting us know we're not going to be in for a normal ride.
No. Things are not right in this world.
So he has it's a 1-room apartment, pretty much. It's a tiny apartment they're living in.
Yeah.
And he's got a maid and this crazy cat being that they call Sensei. Now, Sensei, they do say Sensei to people who are teachers, but it doesn't mean that they are a teacher. It doesn't mean that that's their job. It doesn't mean they're a school teacher.
Right. It is more of an honorific.
Well, it's also...
Don't they call doctors Sensei sometimes?
Yes, and from my own... And this is just my own personal experience. Don't quote me on this because it could very well be wrong, but I kind of view Sensei, when they say somebody is Sensei... it means that they have something to learn from them.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I've gathered. But at the same time, they don't really use it at work. They'll use it for someone who they greatly respect, who's taught them a lot of things at work.
Sure.
Usually somebody who's higher up in the company. But yeah, anyway, so they call this cat creature Sensei. And then he then goes to work. He then goes to school.
Yes, and on his way to school, he meets his...
He meets his classmate.
He meets his classmate, the class rep, who's this cute little girl with
auburn hair and glasses. And she's
very chipper, very trying. She clearly is trying her best to be outgoing. Like she's trying not to be shy. Is the persona that she's exuding.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, and you're right. She's very kind, and I think it's kind of obvious that she kind of has a thing for Soya.
Yeah, and
because she just kind of blushes when she talks to him, type thing. And he says, "Oh, hey, it's you," and she's like, "You don't remember my name, do you?" And he's like, "No, I don't." And we'll learn why later.
I don't remember why, but he has a reason to call her like. It was a lunch thing later. It was a lunch thing later that she. Okay, yeah, they're having lunch. Was that a different episode where he shouts her name?
It's episode 2 or 3 where he says her name and says it wrong and makes it sound like it's food rather than her name.
No, but I mean, where he's either calling her Megane.
Oh yeah, no, that's episode 1. That's okay. Episode 1.
Yeah, when does that happen?
It happens pretty soon, actually.
Okay.
After he gets to school, we then cut back to Sensei and Ginkgo, and they both notice something, and they say, "Oh, so it's finally happening."
Yes.
And then it cuts back to school, and I think they have lunch first. So they have lunch on the roof, and he's just complaining that he doesn't have meat. He just wants meat.
And that's a running gag in this show, is that he's desperate for meat and just can't.
He's a growing boy and he wants protein, and every single one of his meals is just completely vegetable based.
Veggies and rice. And
he's just like, this, I can't do this anymore. And the girl, the class rep comes up and says, "Oh no, well here, would you like some of my hamburger steak?" And he says, "Oh, thank you so much, Megane-sama." And Megane in Japanese means glasses. Well, she mishears it and says, "Oh, I'm not a goddess. You don't have to say that about me." And goddess is Megami, so it's just one syllable different. And she, but then she realizes, wait a minute, you just called me glasses, didn't you? And then she shares part of the hamburger steak with him. And it turns out to be tofu-based hamburger steak.
And he starts crying. It's like, and she reads the situation wrong, thinking that he's happy. Those are tears of joy.
It's tears of joy. She's like, "Did you like it that much?" Well, anyways, they're in school next, and he.
And something occurs to him moments before before a speaker system warning the entire class that some unidentified flying object is heading towards the coast. Please evacuate the city.
Mm-hmm. I think what happens is that it cuts back to Sensei and Ginkgo
At that point,
yeah. And they say, "Oh, they're finally here," and then it cuts back, and he notices it, and then we get the announcement.
Yeah, so there's clearly something about him where he's becoming aware of it more sooner than other people. So we haven't figured out what that element in him is yet, but something's going on, some psychic ability.
Mm-hmm. But he,
because they have dropped the word psychic a couple times in this show now.
Yeah. And he starts getting super excited because they talk about this massive unidentified flying object. And he's like, it's probably a UFO. That's great. That's great.
Aliens.
Oh, wait.
I've always wanted to see aliens.
I forgot to mention, during, I believe it's during lunch, Soya lets the girl know. And during lunch, she teaches him her name again. And we skipped that. Her name is Takamagahara.
Yeah.
That's a 6-syllable name. And she gets upset at him because he can't remember it. It's not an easy name to remember.
No.
And then she learns, he lets it out that he doesn't have any memories. That the earliest thing he remembers is waking up in that room.
She opens up about her middle school experience and then asks him about his.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's when we find out that she was very shy and transferred into middle school middle of the year and didn't know anybody.
And he says to her, I think it was in... No, anyways, you're right. It wasn't middle school when she transferred, but I got confused with some of the other characters we meet later on. There's a lot of transfer students in this show, but she.
Do you sit in this desk?
Does your daughter sit in this desk? She may very well be
a magical girl.
I want to see more of those. Jeff needs to come out with more public service anime videos. Those things are just amazing. But anyway, yeah, and so he says, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything from before, a few weeks back when I first transferred to this school. And she's like, you have amnesia. And then we learn, and then we get to the classroom and the alarm goes off. And he's like, it's a UFO. This is incredible. And she's like, what are you doing? You have to come with the rest of us. Like, no, I want to see the UFO. We can have a great view of it right here.
She then proceeds to lecture him at a high speed, telling him that UFO just means it's an unidentified flying object. It means we haven't identified it yet. It could be a missile from an unknown country. It could be any kind of plane or weapon sent to harm us. We need to evacuate. It is very unlikely that it's alien in origin.
And he's like, wow, you know
how do you know all this all of a sudden? Because I'm in the occult club. Now, come on.
Yeah.
Wait, occult club? Like, occult is in occult?
Yeah, occult is in occult. And so they then go to the gym, and he gets a phone call while he's in the gym from Ginkgo. And Ginkgo says, go outside. Make up an excuse. Just go outside.
Go to a big clear area.
Go to a big clear area. And he's like, what? Why? Just tell him you're gonna go to the bathroom. Just do something. Get out. But really, no one's gonna believe me if I say that. And finally, he gets up and he goes. And the girl, I'm just gonna go and call her by Nozomi rather than Takamagahara. Nozomi is her first name, which we learn in another episode. But she's trying to stop him. She's like, "What are you doing? This is crazy. Like you need to stay here." He's like, "No, I've got to go to the bathroom." And then he runs off because there's a running gag throughout the next couple episodes, where she's like, "He hasn't come back to school. He went to go to the bathroom and never came back."
Yes.
But he goes off to the bathroom, and someone outside is like, "What are you doing? Get in there." He's like, "I've got to go to the bathroom."
You're going the wrong way.
I'm going to the bathroom, as he runs off the school property and stuff. And then he gets picked up.
Which suddenly reminds me of that episode of that comic strip of Calvin and Hobbes where he asks the teacher to go to the bathroom. He walks home and says, "I prefer our bathrooms."
I think he was drinking water at that time.
Something like that.
Yeah, he's just like, "Can I get a glass of water?" "Yes, Calvin, you may." And so he leaves, and he ends up home, and his mom's like, "What are you doing home?" And he says, "I prefer our water."
So, yes.
Oh, Calvin.
Calvin.
Okay, anyway,
Okay, so and then we find out that there are giant, monstrously off creepy teddy bears floating in the
Yeah,
sky.
well, I forget what
Where
they're
they
called,
have
but there's a
it's
special type of Japanese toy. Like it's like a kind of a rod that has like a head on the top.
Uh-huh.
It's like a special type of doll. But this one it's like got kind of cartoony shape of a bear, but then it's got like
it's got mouths in the ears.
it's got
teeth
in the ears, and it's got like 6 little baby arms, and I mean like
all of them, and they're all left arms. 5 left arms hanging out from the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
and
got
it's got 2 ears
where the shoulders should be,
mm-hmm.
and it has a giant nose on its back.
Mm-hmm. And this thing starts flying towards
and
the
it has
city.
the word peas written on it, not peace, peas.
Mm-hmm. And these devices are showing up all across the entire world, and every single one of them is going towards a coastal city. So there's this mass panic going on, and some of the JSDF, Japanese Self-Defense Force, some of their pilots go out to attack this thing, and they shoot missiles at it. And this reminded me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where one of the missiles or all the missiles hit this thing in the air, and they all zip open, and cotton falls out. They break at the seams.
It's like they immediately turned into plushy versions of missiles, and then burst open.
Yeah. And the reason I say it reminded me of Hitchhiker's Guide is because they travel using the infinite improbability drive, which changes things into random things just for humorous effect.
Whereas what that more reminded me of was Paprika, and just the bizarre nature of changing things into something slightly different.
I haven't seen Paprika in years.
But it's just so twisted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Anyway, and then they get hit by this beam of light, like this kind of explosion of light, and it hits one of the pilots.
Yes.
And this pilot sees a vision of his
wife and his daughter, and we found a doctor, and everything's going to be fine.
We found a doctor, and everything's going to be just fine. And
the puppy.
And they have a puppy, and he's like, okay, and he just goes off, and he just kind of flies off on his own. And the other two are calling for him and says, no, I'm going home. It's fine. I'm going home. You know?
Yeah, and so he's flying a fighter jet to wherever it is he lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he's going to land it.
Yep. But anyway, we
never see him again.
Yeah, we haven't seen him yet. So
in the first 3
episodes, we have not seen him again.
Right.
I find that I say a lot of things that end up being shown in episode 4. like in Nisekoi, where they did not say the best friend's name for 3 episodes.
Boom, there it is.
Episode 4, they say his name. I'm just like, fine, whatever. It was more funny if there was this guy who claimed to be his best friend and we never knew his name. But
just a guy.
Taranaki Tokito. Guy.
Okay, so it's now what happens is
there's helicopter reporters.
There's helicopter reporters reporting in on this, and then they notice that there's 7 people who haven't been evacuated, and these 7 people jump off of a pier and go flying towards this thing. Like, oh, are we watching superheroes? And so everybody's got their phones out and they're watching the live news and seeing these superheroes fly off to fight these things. These guys transform into cuddly bear battle mech type things. Like one's a bear and one's a cat and one's...
I wouldn't say so cuddly. They're just, I would say, stylized versions of animals.
Right.
But
they kind of have a Baymax-ish aesthetic to them, where they're poofy.
I would say yes to that for the one that looks like a giant sheep, but there's also like
well, they're all very rounded in. They're not very angular like you would expect like other mech anime would be.
I can kind of... It's just, I forget what they're called, but in Okinawa they have these little statues that are like little lion creatures that would protect the homes from evil spirits. And they're very, very swirly in design. Okay. So that's what they reminded me of. Not so much as Baymax, but they reminded me of those little creatures. And I can't remember what they're called. But every house in Okinawa, on the entrance to their home, they have one on each pillar, a male and a female. Okay. So that's what it reminded me of. That's why I'm kind of not really agreeing with you on that. That's not the vibe that I got at all. All right. And also, like,
that's why we do this podcast.
Yeah.
We have different experiences and we share them.
But the lowly girl, I would say hers is fairly angular.
I didn't think so.
Okay. Anyway, so these 7 people fly off towards this machine or this object, and this object actually fights back. It sends mini versions of itself out like missiles. And there's a lot of them. And they get struck by these little machines, like these little missiles, yes. And their mechs get damaged, but then they kind of
the little missiles are like mini versions of itself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I just said, but anyway. You still there? Everything okay?
Everything's fine. Keep going.
Okay. Anyway, they hear this female voice talking to them, guiding them, telling them what they need to do, like try to find a weakness, and they find on the back this kind of little glowing area. And the guy who seems to be the leader of this group, the guy who's been issuing commands out to them in the field, he flies into this portal. Mm-hmm. And he sees a burning house. And a firefighter, and he sees him, and he is suddenly a much younger version of himself. And this firefighter is keeping him from going to the house, and he's screaming for his mom. My mom's in there. Please, you have to save my mom. And he's remembering, oh, that's right. This is the time when my mom died.
Yeah.
When I couldn't save my mom.
And suddenly the whole...
And this is the reason that
Suddenly the firefighter that's holding him back is him.
Well, he says, and this is the reason that I became, and then it cuts to him being the firefighter, and he says, don't worry, I'm going to go in and save her. And then he runs in and he grabs her. And he goes in and he gets his mom, and then suddenly they're walking down the same park that the pilot was in, just a park filled with cherry trees. And he's talking to his mom and says, there's this great girl that I found. We're going to get married soon. She was there for me ever since middle school, ever since I lost you. And she says, oh, that's great. That's so wonderful. You found someone to be with. And he says, and I became a firefighter so I could help save people. Like ever when I left high school, which I think he means when he graduated high school, he became a firefighter. And he tells his mom that I'm sorry I couldn't save you. And she says, it's okay. You're able to help save other people now. And then he realizes that this is an illusion.
He starts hearing the voices of his teammates who are radioing into him.
Yeah. And he realizes that this is an illusion and that he has to do something about it. And so inside of the illusion, he turns into his mech and he jumps into the air and he brings his fist down on his mom. And just as he's about to make a connection, we see a message. And the screen goes black and we just see a message in white. Uh-huh. And it just says, I forgive you.
Yeah. And
it shakes the hero for a little bit. But then he punches the illusion of his mother and everything shatters and the machine gets destroyed from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And that made me think, are these really the heroes? They might believe that they're the heroes, but what is it that they're actually fighting?
Yeah.
Right there from the beginning, I'm just like, these guys are supposedly the heroes, but there's a lot more going on here than they realize. Yeah. And anyways, the heroes go fly off, and they kind of separate. So the news doesn't intercept them or anything, or they don't get interviewed or whatnot.
Yeah.
So they can keep their identity secret. And the guy who destroyed the machine from the inside, he lands on a mountain. And he walks out of the forest just to come face to face with Soya and Sensei. And Soya is wearing a mask.
Yes.
He's wearing kind of a V-shaped mask that covers his eyes and nose.
It kind of reminded me of Cashern's faceplate.
Yeah, a little bit, huh?
Yeah, but it covers his eyes and nose, and it's 6 lights, 3 on each side, going up in a V shape.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's like, really, do I have to do this? And he's like, yes, just say the line like we told you to. He's hearing the voice of Ginkgo. And Ginkgo also acts as a translator for Sensei.
Yeah, Sensei will go, Mao.
Or he'll just say, or something, like and then she will translate.
And then she'll translate for him.
But he says, all right.
Are you not going to tell me what he said?
Well, and then...
that happens later.
Soya reaches out his hand and says, give me the source of your power. He's like, that's so stupid. Why did I say that? Don't worry. He'll know what you're talking about. And the guy just goes, he grabs his chest and he jumps back and says, "Who are you?" Like, and oh, so you wear it around your neck, huh? And he's like, "Oh crap!" And so he and one thing leads to another, and Sensei.
Sensei tells him that it's time to armor up or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and our main character
Soya's just like, "Wait, what? What are you
and
talking
then
about?"
Sensei jumps over him and gobbles him up. Just,
And he's like, what are you doing? And he swallows him up. And Sensei then turns into a smaller version of one of these mechs.
Yes.
But rather than being gold, and each mech seems to be gold, and then another unique color of
gold,
its own.
a primary color, and then it exudes a rainbow of energy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
But anyway, he then. This one is just kind of black, silver, and blue.
Yes. And I really liked the design of this mech. It actually
Mm-hmm.
kind of reminded me of Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank with the big ears. And,
okay.
And just the way he moved. And,
okay.
So.
Yeah, I guess that is true, huh? He does kind of move like Ratchet. I'm trying to remember what kind of species Ratchet is. Anyways,
yeah. It's
like the entire PS3 series is based off of figuring out what he is.
Yeah.
Anyway. The hero gets into his suit and they end up fighting.
And the hero realizes that after all the exertion he put himself under trying to take out this this larger mech, that he's not at 100%. He's actually very weakened.
Mm-hmm.
But so he tries to defeat our hero, our main character. In a pretty amazing dark nighttime fight between the two of them.
Yep, and the main character is actually doing really, really well against the hero, and eventually, like, he gets to kind of an emotional peak in the fight, and then he summons this hammer, and uses this hammer, and he just shatters. He hits the head of the main hero's mech with it, and just shatters the mech, and the hero falls down to the ground. Just him, because the mech has been destroyed, and the mech is like a psychic materialization,
which turns out to be held in a small glass vial, and it's just these glitter stars.
They look like I forget what beach they are, but there's an actual beach that sand actually looks like stars, and you can buy it in little jars just like that. Neat. So that's what it reminded me of.
And the vial is small. It reminded me of the vial that the llama potion was in. And,
oh gosh,
that's how small it was.
Yay,
it's just a very little.
I'm a llama again. Wait. But okay, so and then as the hero's trying to get back up, Ginkgo jumps down from behind, grabs his necklace, and then jumps up, and but all this time, Soy is saying to himself, "These guys are just using me as a tool. They're using me as a weapon for their own purposes.
Training me to be a soldier in their war.
Training me to be a soldier in their war. I don't want to do this. I've got to get away from these guys." And then he says that to himself, and then she hands him the vial, and he grabs the vial, and then he gets a memory. And he gets the memory that is the dream that he had earlier in the episode of what turns out to be his home planet being destroyed.
And all he remembers is that these guys are somehow using the power that this that was used to destroy his home planet, and so he vows revenge on the rest of. I'm going to kick the butts of all.
Yeah, and he realizes that the power they're using is the power that was used to destroy his planet, and he vows to defeat them all. And that's where episode 1 ends with the girl who's giving them orders talking to a man with dragon eyes, and very, very like wild red hair.
So it was a very Ganon-esque figure.
Yes.
So
very, very so.
So his character design, and this is one of my top notes, is that his character design just felt like, is this guy a hero or a villain? Because he could be, because your first impressions of him are villain. The heroes are being used by a mastermind.
Yeah, that's
the first impression you are supposed to have. I feel seeing him at the last clip right after the opening credits, right after the closing.
But yeah, and she says to him, "Hideo's been defeated," and that's the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
Second episode starts with a meeting, and all the heroes are around a table,
and they're all discussing the defeat of what's his name again?
of Hideo.
And it's like, well, Hideo was the weakest of us.
So they started with the weakest of us. That's fine, and that's the little lowly. That's Miyu who's saying that. She's like, he started with the weakest of us. Like, there's no big deal. And then the secretary, who Shiraishi, we learned that her name is that. She pulls up a chart and says, actually, he was the strongest of you all. And it shows like kind of this graph chart of
the rest of you are like 8% less.
Yeah, the rest of you are about 8%, within 8% of each other, so you're around the same. But he was by far the strongest of you, and you see his numbers way above everybody else's. And
they start talking about those horrible things that happened to him, and then they cut to him, who's standing at the table, like, guys, I'm here.
Guys, I'm right here. Yeah,
because they spent this whole time talking as if he wasn't.
And they come to the decision that, and their names real fast. It turns out this group is called Grand Paladin, and they believe that they're the people who are going to save the world. And we have Haru, who's we have Miyu, who's the lowly with pink hair. We have Haru, who seems to be a young, brown-haired girl who's lacking confidence or very, very shy, keeping to herself. We have Benika, who is, seems to be the strict woman type, long red ponytail. Yeah. We've got Yosuke. Yosuke is we don't know much about him yet, but he's got green hair and glasses. And then we've got Nezuya, the guy who always poses reading books. He's got blue hair. And then we've got Takezo, who's the old man.
Yes.
Anyway,
who's apparently the father of the Ganondorf-esque figure.
The father of I've got his name. Where did I put his name down?
It's their boss.
Takashi.
Okay.
Takashi. Yep, Takezo is Takashi's dad.
Anyway,
they're all discussing what to do, and they come to the decision that they're going to pair up. That they're always going to be traveling around in groups after their fights, just so they don't get ambushed like that again.
Yeah.
Takashi tells Hideo. Because Hideo says, well, there's no more point in me being here. I can't fight alongside with you. I'll just get going. And Takashi says, no, actually, I want you to go ahead and lead up the investigation and learn who these people are. And we learn through this conversation that the enemies who are attacking Earth are called Nebula. And they go ahead and they name I keep forgetting his name, Soya. They name Soya a Nebula soldier.
Yes, a Nebula soldier, and they call the weapons that were over the ocean Nebula weapons. They ask what he remembers about the fight, and he just says, I don't really remember much. I mean, I remember the fight itself, but there was a young boy.
There was
a girl, and all of his memories are like he remembers the mask, but the face behind the mask was all this sensor blur that he couldn't sense.
Well, it wasn't just the face; it was the entire body. The entire body was like that.
And then it's like there was a perception filter that the mask activated when it turns on.
And the same thing with Ginko, like her face was covered by the cat, by like a sticker of the cat, and her body was all fuzzy as well. Same with Sensei, even though it was his own face. Sensei's face was covered with another cat sticker, and his body was phasing around as well.
His face was covered with the sticker of his own face.
Yep.
It's the greatest thing.
And so we learned that, and that's actually, like, I know there's kind of a plot hole in Magical Girl anime where they always have the same face, but I always just kind of filled in the blanks myself that it's a magical transformation where we see their faces because we know who they are, but that doesn't mean the enemy sees their faces. No. I always kind of figured there was some kind of a magical interference that made their faces look different to the enemies. Right. But, that's just a blank I filled in myself. And now we can see that that's actually what they're doing in this anime, which made me very happy. I thought that was cool. Anyway, the heroes all pair up. Miyu and Haru team up. Benika and Yosuke team up. And then Nezuya and... actually, no, that's right. It's Benika and Nezuya who team up. And then it's Yosuke and Takezo who team up.
Yes.
And as everyone leaves except for Takezo, and Takezo's like, son, can you loan me some more money? And he's just like,
what happened to the 30,000 yen I gave you yesterday?
Well, which is about $300. He's like, what happened to the 30,000 yen I gave you yesterday? I spent it all at the usual place. And
which there's a beat, and you go, what is this guy's usual place?
Well, you first think that this guy's a gambler. Like, he's just throwing the money away.
Is he a gambler? Is he a lecher? Is he going to clubs with is he going to gentleman clubs or whatever? Clubs?
What is he doing? He's going to eat steak.
And there's a clip later in this. I don't remember if it was the middle of episode 2 or the beginning of episode 3. I think it was middle of episode 2, where there's a news report
of a mysterious old man that goes to these steak places and puts them out of business.
Eats them out of business.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, what a great follow-up.
I was like, oh, wow. But anyway, the son says no.
And the old man's like, meat is the only thing I can enjoy in life anymore. If you take this away from me, it's like, just deal with him.
Yeah, and Shiraishi takes him away.
The secretary.
The secretary, Shiraishi. Yeah. She takes him away, and then we kind of hear them outside as this guy starts saying, Nebula, I will not let you take this planet. I will protect the humans. It will be me who protects the humans. And again, we hear like, he says, please just give me some money so I can go ahead and get some meat. Maybe you can come with me. It will be a lot of fun. And then he gets pissed off and turns around and says, will you shut the... And then it cuts off.
Yes. Wow.
Yep. Anyway, ever since the incident at school, or like with the UFOs, Sayo has not gone back to school.
Right.
And it's been a couple of days, and we see a news report, and this is where we see Nozomi saying that, yeah, like, they say, well, we're going to go ahead and ask this middle schooler about the incident. She's like, actually, I'm a high schooler. Which the same thing happened to Soya in an earlier episode, where he's just like, no, I'm...
No, there was this episode. There's episode 2 where he's...
Episode 2 where he's mistaken. Okay, so... Yeah. Anyways, that's right. That interview happens in episode 3. So let's get back to that when we get to episode 3. But episode 2, he decides he wants to become stronger so he can go ahead and defeat his enemies more.
And he decides that school is not important anymore.
Yeah.
And so he's going to... And then he finds a pair of iron clogs.
And for those of you who don't know what Japanese clogs are, they're not the dancing shoes. No. They are those wooden platform shoes that you see.
Wooden platform sandals.
And he finds ones that are made of iron, and he gets super excited, and then he goes for a run wearing those. And it's really hard for him.
God. Mm-hmm. Because those are sandals, and the only place you grip them is between your toes.
Yeah. But he runs, and he goes to...
a park bench.
He sits on a park bench. That's right. Nozomi's wondering where he is because he hasn't been back to school. She sees his desk empty, and then we cut to him running through a park as quickly as he can, which is not very fast.
No, it's pretty funny.
And he sits down, and he gets a flashback of his planet being destroyed, and he's just overcome by the emotion of it. And he's swearing revenge against these people as he starts crying. And then he notices somebody coming up, and he stops himself crying, and this person sits right next to him. And he looks, and it's the hero that he defeated the previous night.
Yes.
And he starts freaking out a little bit. But then he sees the hero eating steamed buns. And for those of you who don't know what steamed buns are, you are missing out. It's just soft, warm bread filled with meat. They're so good.
I have yet to have one.
Yeah, you do. You can actually go to an Asian import store and buy some frozen ones.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you like the ones that I buy. I don't have a steamer, but I part of the instructions are if you want to use your microwave, just put them in the microwave, but then cover them with a damp paper towel, so it acts as a steamer.
Okay.
And yeah, they come out really, really good. But anyway, he hears this guy. What was the conversation about? Do you remember?
Well, the guy starts talking about whether or not he's seen a kid in a mask. Like, who wears a mask these days? And so there's a lot of suspicion. Like, does he suspect it's me? Does he know?
Like, yeah. Does he suspect? Does he suspect it's me? Is it like what's going on? It's like, yeah, actually, I'm looking for a kid about your size. Wears a mask. You know, it's like, no, I don't know anyone like that. It's like, yeah, I mean, seriously, who wears a mask these days? Type thing, you know. And he's like, well, I came over, and he's like, oh,
I saw you crying. Like, it's not your business, please.
Well, it was like, well, he says, here is, like, Sayo keeps staring at the bag. He's got a bag of these meat buns.
Yes, and he's looking at these meat buns.
He's looking at, and he's like, he's just got this drool that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And finally,
and then there's what the conversation ends.
Hideo's,
Yeah, Hideo offers him a meat bun.
Uh-huh. And then an alarm goes off.
And then an alarm goes off, and it turns out that another one of these weapons is coming up.
Another nebula weapon has appeared. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the guy gets up and runs off and says, tells him to be safe. And this is where we learn that he says, well, I saw...
Oh, you can't run very fast in those. And so he gives him his shoes.
He gives him his shoes.
And then runs off hurting his feet.
Mm-hmm. But then he says, he also says to Soya, this is the mark where he says, well, I saw, saw a middle schooler crying. I wanted to make sure he was okay. And he's like, actually, I'm a high schooler. So, yeah. So that's the conversation where that happened. Yes. But anyways, even though he doesn't have any more powers, Hideo still goes off to try to see what he can do to help. And then we cut to, again, the cameraman and the camera operators, and the news people. They notice that the heroes are there again, but this time there's 6. Like, what happened? There were 7 the other day. Why are there only 6 this time? And the 6 heroes fly off towards the enemy, and they start following Miyu's lead this time.
Which reminds me of that comic Volgun or Guntron.
Oh gosh, Guntron.
Guntron. It's Voltron, but it forms a gun and it fires one of their guys into a suicide mission, and it blows up. Like, yay! Guntron is victorious, and one of their own is. And anyway, no. But before they fly off and do that, after he runs, he's there. He's got the meat bun. He can't wait, and he bites into it. And you know something's wrong. Out.
He's just like, it's bean jam, which is actually really, really tasty. But when you want meat,
it's not meat.
That's okay. I like oatmeal raisin cookies. I really do. I think they're really, really tasty.
Sure.
But when you bite into a cookie expecting chocolate chip and you get raisin, what's your reaction?
The same reaction I get when I'm expecting to bite into mayonnaise and get honey mustard.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're getting something you're not expecting, no, it was my very first experience at a Wendy's. I ordered a grilled chicken sandwich, and I didn't realize that they put honey mustard on it, and I thought it was mayonnaise, and so I took a bite, and I thought, this is awful, and then I took a look at it. Why is the mayonnaise yellowy and glittery? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't finish it.
That's sad.
And it wasn't until I actually got a job at Wendy's a year later that I found out it was honey mustard, and I'm like, oh. Now I feel dumb.
But
anyway, and now they don't even have it as an ingredient.
That's yeah.
So
anyway, which is sad. I really like honey mustard. Anyway,
I think they have it as a dipping sauce.
Possibly. Anyway,
so the weapon that shows up this time is
it's a pig.
It's a pig.
But it has instead
got
of
feet
hooves,
where its hands are and hands where its feet should be.
Well, instead of hooves, it has the baby limbs again.
Yes.
From baby toys, and it's got hands down where the feet should be, and again it's on the opposite sides, and then feet up where the hands should be. So
it's all backwards.
Yep, and the heroes get towards it, and they find the weakness, and this time Miyu goes into it, and we see Miyu, where she. Yeah, we see Miyu, and we see her doing a judo match. Mm-hmm. And in this judo match, she's going up against the other girl on the team, Haru. And we don't see and it's a judo match watched by millions. There's the camera pans up, and there's 10 stories of people watching this match, and every seat is filled.
Yeah.
And we don't see who wins. We just see them start the judo match, and then the camera cuts.
Enjoying the match,
and them enjoying the match together. And the camera cuts, and we just hear the fight and stuff like that. And then the camera comes back, and we see both of them on the ground just panting, absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh wait, no! Everyone warned me that this is this is an illusion, and I need to break it."
Yeah.
And so she gets back into her mech, and she strikes Haru with her mech.
And the message that pops up there is, it's okay to be weak.
Yeah, it's okay to be weak. Yeah. Which, again, shocks her big time. But then she still punches Haru, and the machine, the weapon, the nebula weapon dissipates into nothing.
Yeah. And that happens around sunset. Mm-hmm. The whole time, the trio, Sensei,
Sensei Sayo,
Saya
Soya, and Ginko.
Ginkgo are watching them pair off and go into different directions, and so they and then is it Mina, or who's the one that's with the little girl?
Miyu and Haru.
Haru, that's it. Miyu and Haru end up at the edge of a forest and end up going into the forest to get towards civilization from where they landed from the coastline. And that's where they're stopped by Sayo and Sensei.
Soya. It's Soya. Soya.
Soya and Sensei stop them. And then he insists that they get
and he's really into it this time. He says, "Give me your powers," or like give me the source of your powers. And the girls both say no, and they activate their mechs, and he activates his, and they seem to be doing...
this time he doesn't complain about getting gobbled up by Sensei. He's like, I'm inside Sensei. It's warm in here.
Yeah, well, he doesn't. What am I trying to say? He doesn't. Well, he's expecting it this time.
Yeah, he's expecting
it this time. I mean, it wasn't a surprise. This giant cat just suddenly opens his mouth up and eats you. How would you feel? Seriously.
The first time.
But he gets in. The two girls are actually a really good tag team.
Yes.
Miyu has this spinning attack.
It turns out they both admire each other for very different reasons.
Yeah.
And we find that more fully in episode 3.
Anyways,
the two of them are very good at tag teaming, and they start fighting.
Miyu has this spinning attack, and Soya dodges the spinning attack, only to be rammed and thrown, grappled by Haru, and by her amazing judo moves.
Yep.
And so he's outmatched for a little bit, but then he gets them separate. He separates them, and the Miyu makes the mistake of doing the exact same attack over and over and over again. And you never want to do that in a battle, ever.
No, because if you let somebody see the way you're going to do something too often, they can find the weakness in it, and he does.
Yep.
And he perfectly times his hammer attack into her, and it shatters her armor.
Yep.
And she goes flying.
Yeah, her spin attack. She rotates like a hedgehog, but instead of where Sonic,
it's kind of like the screw attack that Metroid does.
I was going to say Sonic, where Sonic rolls up into a ball and it's his back that's exposed during it, whereas the way she's doing it, her head is exposed. Her head is what's hitting people. And he notices that, and so he uses his hammer and he slams her head as she's spinning, and the force of her spin combined with the force of his hammer shatters the head of the armor, and then her entire armor gets dissipated.
And she goes flying through the air. And so as she's falling through the air, she sees her vial of stardust. I'm just going to call it that because it's star-shaped.
That's fine, yeah.
So she sees her vial of stardust, and she's trying to reach for it when Ginkgo grabs it and then flies over to Sensei. And Haru catches her.
Yep. And... yeah, Haru catches Miyu, and she's freaking out. She's like, Miyu, are you okay? Miyu, please be okay. And because Miyu's not moving.
And Miyu gets on her hands and knees, so she's up a little bit in the hands of the mech. But
we didn't mention that Miyu, pretty much the entire episode, is talking about how she's strong. She can do this. She's strong. She's strong. She's strong.
Yes. That was her thing, is that she admires Haru's strength and wants to be as strong as her, wants to be the strongest of the group.
Yes.
That's what it needs to be, and that's why it's so impactful for her when the message was, it's okay to be weak.
It's okay to be weak, and then she loses her powers.
Yes.
And they take her powers, and they're like, okay, we have her power, let's go. And Soya's like, no, there's another one right there. She's weakened. I can go ahead and finish this. Let's do this. And like, no, we need to go now. And he says, no, like, I can do this. Let's fight them. And then while he's arguing with them, the other 4 heroes show up.
Yes.
All in their mechs. They all surround him in their mechs.
So now he's outnumbered 5-1. Also, the secretary and the leader are there present as well.
Shiraishi and Takashi are both there.
And they all surround him, and that's the end of episode 2.
Yep. Episode 3 starts with the fight. And because now he has to fight if he wants to get out. But Ginkgo actually says, look, surrender, we'll get you. We'll come save you.
Yeah.
And he's like, no,
We'll
I'm
figure
not
this
going to
out."
surrender. I'm not going to surrender. I'm going to fight these guys.
Yeah.
And so he goes and he fights them.
Yeah.
And he
goes
actually does.
all out.
He goes all out, and he actually does fairly well against them, considering it's 1 against 5.
Yes.
But he's still overpowered. He can't do anything, and he notices the guy who's the leader, and he's like, well, at least I can take out their leader. And he goes.
So he targets their leader, who is on the ground in his human form.
Mm-hmm. And the leader, right before Soya attacks him, transforms himself.
Yeah,
and
apparently he uses the same command line that everyone else shouts when they turn.
Mm-hmm.
Something about God mode power or something like that.
Something like that. But anyways, and his form is that it's black instead of gold and red,
Yes.
and it's a dragon.
Yes,
And he just destroys Soya. Like Soya doesn't stand a chance against him. He does this one breath attack that One Punch Man.
Yeah.
Okay. When.
Well, what he has is it's not a breath attack.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own hammer. He has his own hammer attack, and his hammer is so while the cat's is called the Giga Cat Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's hammer is called Thor's hammer.
Mm.
And so he uses Thor's hammer, which destroys the Giga Cat hammer and the arm,
mm-hmm.
and then does like One Punch Man, melts through a cliffside.
I was gonna say it's like that scene in One Punch Man where Genos gets upset at Saitama for not taking this training seriously. And Saitama's just like, okay. And the very next shot is Genos realizing that he's in way over his head. And
because Saitama moved so fast, he didn't see what happened. He just sees the fist stop.
Yeah, well,
an inch away from his nose.
All of his senses are danger, danger, I am going to die. And he just sees this image of this massive Saitama throwing a punch at him.
Yeah.
And Saitama stops the punch right before Genos' nose. And the force of the punch,
the shockwave that the air pushed in the punch,
destroyed an entire mountain behind him. It's just, and then Genos turns around and he's just like, I was a fool for thinking I could ever fight on Master's level.
And it's just, and then Saitama just goes, "Oh, let's get something to eat."
Yeah, I'm thinking soba or something like that. Maybe udon, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Yep. But anyway, so that's episode 3.
Episode 3 starts with a fight, and he loses.
Mm-hmm. And just as they're about to capture him, well, what happens is that he actually gets pinned down by Haru for a bit as well. The reason he attacks their leaders because Haru's got him pinned down. He then breaks out of Haru's pin with the hammer.
Yeah, hammers her arm away.
Hammers her arm away, and then he goes after the leader.
Yes.
So everybody's taken some hits from this fight except for the leader. And then suddenly this cat head appears in the middle of the sky.
A cat head that looks exactly like Sensei.
It's exactly like Sensei.
But it's the size of these previous weapons that have been coming at them. So it's tens of meters tall.
And then through like a ring of light that descends, the rest of this body appears. And
materializes or something.
And this head and the mouth opens up, and
then from the valley of this molten rock that has been blasted, it reaches down, grabs what's left of Soya's mech, and who is Sensei,
and tosses it into its mouth, and everyone's just like, "It just ate it! What the crap? What's going on?"
And Ginkgo jumps in the mouth.
Ginkgo jumps in afterwards,
and then you see it just stand there. And it gets down on it. Then it gets down, and then lifts up its leg and starts scratching its face.
Scratching its face with its leg,
with its mouth wide open. Which the mouth of it is a starry dimensional portal.
Yeah,
and so it's clear. It's visually speaking, it's clear that they were teleported away using this mechanism.
Yeah. But everyone's just like, well, and the leader, Takashi, he's like, all right, everyone, let's go. And then one of them says, wait, why don't you just use your attack to destroy that ship? He's like, well, the leader said we got to go, so we got to go. And so they all left. So it might be that I don't know. Either his attack is so powerful that it drains him completely after using it once.
Right.
Or he knows that his attack's not going to do anything to that ship, so there's no point using it. Anyway.
Maybe that ship is like darkness and put all its points in defense.
Oh, gosh. Anyway,
Konosuba reference check.
Yep. Anyway, we then get a scene where Soya is sitting with a bucket of fried chicken
in a movie theater, in a stage,
in a theater. And on that stage, there's a chalkboard, and there is Sensei, and then
a white dog
version of Sensei. Like, it's the same body shape, but it's got a white dog face. And they're just talking back and forth. And he's like, and the dog says, "Look, you can't worry about that planet anymore. It wasn't your fault. Why do you even have this kid with you?" And he says, "Well, his powers are similar to mine. He's able to draw out more power from me than anybody else who I've ever worked with before. So he's a very useful asset for our cause." And we start learning that no, these guys are not related to Nebula. They are in fact a third faction called pacifists.
Well, they are so there's two Nebula factions.
Mm-hmm.
One are active and one are pacifist. And the active ones are the ones sending the weapons.
Yes.
And the pacifist ones, they just want to collect, because the active ones apparently want to stop human evolution. Like, it's gone as far as it should, and it needs to stop. And because if they continue on their evolutionary path with these stardust, then they will evolve based on power, and that'll be bad for their planet.
And then the same thing will happen to their planet that happened to Soya's homeworld.
So they want to stop evolution from becoming power based.
Sirius was the name of his planet.
Sirius. But, okay. So the pacifists want evolution to continue, but based on love instead of on power.
Mm-hmm.
And the activists want evolution to stop cold turkey, just done.
They want it to be done.
Mm-hmm. And so there's disagreement on the correct way to move forward. And the idea the pacifist has is to take this power away from these guys so that humankind can evolve the correct way.
Through love rather than through power.
Yes. And that's all explained with the chalkboard.
But at the same time, he says, "But what will happen if they evolve through love like you want them to?" The dog says. And Sensei just says, "It will still be bad, but not as bad as through power." So whatever's going to happen, it's going to be bad. We already know that.
And so the audience gets all this exposition dumped through here, and the whole time, Soya's there with the chicken, bringing it closer and closer to his mouth.
And he's about to take a bite of it, and then he puts it down for some reason, because he gets distracted, and then he goes for it again.
And when he finally takes a bite, he wakes up, and he's taking a bite out of his down comforter.
Mm-hmm. Before that, though, we need to say that the dog, turns out his name is Generalissimo. The dog gets called away by a woman in the shadows.
Generalissimo. Is that supposed to be High General with like an Italian twist on it?
I don't know.
The way Fortissimo is louder than Forte?
I don't know.
Like the Fortissimo of Ikebukuro?
Maybe, I don't know. But they call him, this woman calls him Generalissimo and says it's time to go. And the woman's voice sounds like the secretary to me. I was just like, oh, I wonder if it's the same person.
Now they do play at that a little later in that episode, because there's an exchange between the secretary and the most serious girl on the team. It's like, you know a lot about these things. Just focus on your mission.
Yeah. Well, and then the dog calls Sensei Pacifist of Chaotic Black.
Yeah.
And then Sensei calls the dog Generalissimo something, but I don't remember. I didn't write down what he wrote.
Yeah, it's a but calls him something white. Yeah.
And they anyways, that's when Sayo wakes up, and he's eating his down comforter, and then Ginkgo realizes he's awake and says, "Oh, you've been asleep for 3 days. Like, what are we doing back in the apartment? Weren't we swallowed by the thing?" "Oh, that's my spaceship," says Sensei, or he says through Ginkgo. "Yeah, Sensei says that's his spaceship, and that's a portal, and it has a portal connected straight to this apartment. You've been asleep for the last 3 days." So, and Sensei actually has his arm
in a cast. The arm that was blasted off of the neck.
Yep.
So.
It's then that he's eating his breakfast, and his breakfast is a vegetable curry. It's just broccoli with hot sauce on it. Or broccoli and curry sauce.
So sad.
But he's eating it, and there's a news report on the TV, and the reporter says, "We've had some strange things going on in this town recently with superheroes and giant robots attacking us. Let's go ahead and get the opinions of the local person. You, there, Miss Junior High student." Actually, I'm a high school student.
Oh.
And it's Nozomi. It's Nozomi. And he's just like, oh, and she says, well, I'm really worried about it. In fact, one of my classmates stopped coming to school ever since the attacks happened. He was like, we had an emergency, and he said he had to go to the bathroom, and I never saw him again. He never came back from the bathroom. I hope he made it to the bathroom okay. And the reporter's just like, I bet he did. Like, I'm pretty certain he did. Because really, nothing really happened to the town. Everything all the fights have been happening over the ocean.
Yes.
But anyways, he feels bad and he decides he needs to go back to school.
I'm wondering if in a future episode that reporter's going to get suspicious and wonder if her friend is one of the secret heroes, since they're going to start tailing him.
I don't know. Maybe. That could happen.
But the reporter's definitely a recurring character at this point.
Yes, we've seen her several times. We've seen her seveple times so far.
Yeah.
Usually she's the one who's on the news reporting these incidents and stuff. Yes. But anyway, he goes back to school, and Nozomi is so happy about it. She's like, "Hey, come with me. I want to show you. I want to do something. I want to show you something." He's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, and then they go through the school. She flings the door open and she shows him this cool room. It's like, oh, cool. What is this? Oh, this is the occult club. I just wanted to show it to you. He's like, what? Okay. Like, wait, why? Well, you've got interest in the occult, don't you? I mean, like, when
you were so obsessed with that UFO.
You were so obsessed with that UFO. And he's just like, yeah, that's before my memories came back. He said to himself. He says to himself. And she's like, but there's so many different things that you could study about in the occult club. But here, go ahead and have a seat. And they're just chatting. And then the door opens up again, and you hear this girl. This goes, no way, another person. This is great. And the class rep Nozomi says, yeah, he's here to join the club. And so he's just like, wait, what? And then she pulls out a registration, an envelope labeled registration, and hands it to the president. And the president slyly slips it as if it's a bribe under her jacket. It's like, great, now we have 5 members, so they won't close the club. But 2 of them are ghosts. What do you mean ghosts? Oh, they're members, but they never show up. We haven't seen them in a while. Oh, okay. And as he's in the room talking to them, they like the door opens up again, and who walks in?
One of the 7 heroes, which is the most obnoxious of them, is a boy who thinks he's very cool and stands around posing, holding a book, and has a gleam in his eye, which seriously just, you know,
Nezuya is his name.
I had tracked down. It's not free; you have to rent it. But on Amazon Prime Video, they have Doc Savage, and you can watch the trailer.
Oh no.
And so, the gleam in the eye. That effect.
Ding.
Made me think of that. Doc Savage.
Actually, it reminds me, just because I've been reading Komi-san Can't Communicate. There's a character in that manga. I can't remember what his name is right now, but his name is a play off of Narcissist.
Okay.
I think his name is literally just Narcissus-kun or something like that. Is what they call him. And he thinks he's the most beautiful person, and he thinks that he's the main character of this story, and nobody finds him attractive but him. Nobody gives him the time of day but him. And he thinks that everybody's too stunned by his beauty to interact with him. So this
well, if King is daddy, I guess that makes me mommy.
Guess that makes me mommy.
Shadow King.
The Shadow King. I learned very
or on
quick.
Host School reference. Or on Host School reference.
Oh, by the way, sorry. I need to tell a friend. I'm pretty sure ever since with the Crunchyroll Funimation split,
yes,
Oran High School Host Club is one of the shows that was removed. I think it's still on Netflix though.
I think so.
I'll have to tell my friend. I'll tell my friend that it's still on Netflix because she said that she wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
But anyway, he walks in and they're like, "Hey, it's Senpai." Oh, wait, he's one of our senpais? Says, Soya. He's like, oh, well, yeah, he's graduated already, but he's a loser, so he keeps coming out to hang out with us.
They're just so honest. They're so honest about how awful this guy is.
He keeps coming in here and just, like, borrowing books.
Why is he in a school uniform? He says it's cosplay.
Why is he still wearing the school uniform? He says it's cosplay. But we learned that, different people have different interests. Like, someone's interested in aliens, someone's interested in witchcraft, someone's interested in these other things, and monsters.
Yeah. Yeah. The Loch Ness kind of a cult, or the Bigfoot kind
like,
of.
the cult covers all of that. So please, like, I know I kind of tricked you into joining the club, but there's just so much for you to study and learn about. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And the club president says, and I declare the rest of the meeting free study. And so they all just kind of split up and start reading their own things. And he pulls up this book, and
it's a Loch Ness-esque.
It's like a Loch Ness monster book. Myths and legends and stuff like that. And as he sits down and starts reading this book, Nezuya is just like, you look really, really familiar to me, but I can't really place it. And then Nozomi's just like, I wonder if you know him from his past. Maybe he knows about you. This might be a clue to help heal your amnesia. And then the president's like, wait, what? Amnesia? And Nozomi apologizes and realizes that, she shouldn't have brought up the amnesia and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, no, amnesia is a pretty serious thing. We shouldn't, kind of play around with it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyways,
and then who's the nerd with the book? Nezuya then immediately assumes he's the coolest guy around because amnesia just sounds so cool.
Yeah, that's Nezuya for you, though.
And so they become best. And so he declares them best friends.
Oh gosh,
or something along those lines. It's just so bad.
While they're there that they get another alert? I'm trying to remember.
No, the alert happens late at night.
That's right. It happens later at night. That's right. It's because it's actually at night when it happens. But also, we learn in this episode of the relationship between Miyu and Haru. And Miyu first transferred. She is the other transfer student, which is what I said. There's so many transfer students in this show. But she transferred when she was in 5th grade. And she was being teased by some guys at school.
So that doesn't happen until the illusion. That's part of the story of what happens in the illusion.
Okay.
And so we'll get to, so that's coming up.
Okay. But Haru, after Miyu got her powers taken from her, Haru has just completely changed.
Yeah.
She's no longer the shy, quiet girl. She's
out for revenge.
She's out for blood.
She wants to hurt the person who took away her best friend's smile.
Mm-hmm. And and we see that as this time the Nebula weapon is a group of baby dolls hanging upside down.
Yeah.
And
with faces on their diapers.
Something weird like that. Yeah. But they the Nebula weapon is walking towards the city in the sky, and so this time now the 5 heroes go off, and Haru is they're desperately searching for the weakness for the entrance and stuff like that while they're fighting off the weapons, and Nezuya finds it first, but this time there's 2 openings instead of 1. And Nezuya goes through one, and Haru says, wait for me, and she goes in through the other one, and then we see Haru's vision.
Yes.
And we see
we see both of them. Nezuya and Haru are back to back. They don't notice each other. And Nezuya sees a giant mansion in gold gilding. Maybe it's a library. I'm not sure, but it is some large, fancy structure. And he heads off towards that. Whereas she sees an open field of beautiful flowers, and there is a vanity and Miyu standing there.
And she goes and she sits next to Miyu.
And Miyu has her sit down in front of the vanity and starts brushing her hair, and they start reminiscing.
And then we have Miyu's first experience with Haru, where Miyu is being bullied by some boys at school. And Haru comes and just does a judo flip on one of them and throws him into one of the desks. And Miyu was just awestruck by this. And
she's so impressed. That's why she joined the judo class.
She started taking judo because she wanted to be strong like Haru.
She wanted to be like Haru. Meanwhile,
Haru wanted to be a princess like Miyu.
Yes.
The first time she saw her, when she was up there in the class introduction, she just thought, I saw a princess up there. So,
and that is suddenly after the flashback, you are a princess now, and so the illusion is she just put a crown and a princess dress on her in front of the vanity, and that it's just a very interesting relationship that the two of them envied the other so much. of who they were just admired the other person so much they were willing to change who they were to become more like the other.
And Miu is dressed up as a prince type thing, and they kind of share a moment between each other. But then Haru remembers that this is an illusion, and she needs to destroy it if she's going to defeat this weapon.
Yes.
And so she goes into her mech and she attacks the illusion. And right before she destroys the illusion, she gets the message that says, "Nobody's afraid of you." Which to me means the reason that she is that she's so shy and reserved is because she's afraid her strength is going to make people afraid of her.
Right.
Which is probably the experience that she personally had after she flipped the boy.
Yeah.
She became friends with Miu, but I guarantee all the boys in the class were afraid of her after that, and she felt like that's just what her life was going to be from then on.
Yeah, that she'd always be alone and lonely because everyone would be afraid of her. That makes sense.
And then they, and we're watching this entire, obviously we're watching it, but Soya is watching this entire thing happen via a hologram on top of the cat spaceship's head.
Yeah.
He, Sensei, and Ginko are all standing there watching this hologram.
Now, when the whole thing started, they're watching the hologram, they're seeing the babies coming by, and Ginko goes, "Oh, how cute!" And Soya's like, "What?"
Yeah, what? But anyways, after she destroys the machine, she comes out and she then realizes that Nezuya is nowhere to be seen. Like his mech is gone, and they see Nezuya falling unconscious through the sky, and she goes and she catches him, and that's when we see Soya seeing his senpai, the loser senpai who keeps hanging out in the occult club, is one of the heroes.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh crap!"
So he recognizes him from somebody he met before they were fighting. Or rather, yeah, because the last time he met one of them, it was after they had fought, and now he's meeting somebody, finding out that somebody he had met and became friends with is somebody that's his enemy. And he sees him falling there. End episode 3.
And that's the end of episode 3. And what a cliffhanger.
It took a lot of willpower from both of us not to watch the next episode immediately.
Yeah.
This show has incredible cliffhangers. Every episode is just... This show is designed for binge watching.
This show, we've been gushing about it for the past hour. But yeah, it's an incredible show. It's really good. I love the kind of the mystery, the aura, like what's going on. I love all the heroes. I love the Nebula, the people of the Nebula faction that we've met already.
Yes.
I really want to see more of it.
I feel like there's no real bad guys yet, but that we just have different people with different ideologies clashing against each other, and that there is a malicious force out there that needs to be dealt with, but we haven't seen anybody who's really on the bad side yet.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Takashi means by saying, "I will be the one to save humanity," or save the humans.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
something is definitely going on. There's a lot more than the surface level material. There's a lot of subtext, a lot of foreshadowing of unknown events happening in these first 3 episodes, and I'm very much excited to watch more of it. So
cool. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, next week, what are we going to watch? I mean, you just put your tablet away, and you're the one who's going to read it because you picked it.
Right.
I can just hand you mine.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So next week, we are going to take a blast from the past and watch the first 3 episodes of Galaxy Express 999.
This is an old anime, and it's highly influential. Highly influential.
The synopsis reads, in a distant future, Tetsuro, a human boy who wants his body replaced with a robotic one. This is possible, but to do so, he has to reach the immortal planet on board the space train Galaxy Express 999.
Okay.
It's a very old show. It has it inspired a lot of more recent work. Captain Harlock has the same art style from back in the day, and then the 3D movie they made of that was brilliant. It also some of its art style was borrowed in that Daft Punk hour-long music video, Interstellar 5555.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to being able to review this show.
Yeah, awesome. We'll at least review the first 3 episodes.
Of course.
Okay, well, since that is... since we're done with 3 episodes in, let's go ahead and move on to recommendation of the week.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that I have already recommended this, but I'm going to go ahead and recommend it again just because it is such... It's really, really important to me, you know? Dungeons & Dragons. I adore Dungeons & Dragons. And I just had a whole lot of fun with it last night with some friends. We were traveling with an NPC paladin. And this NPC paladin, who we know is a good man, and is a very honorable man, has suddenly been blacklisted by his order of paladins and marked as a heretic and marked for execution.
Wow.
And we're just like, what? And so we've actually spent the last 2 sessions trying to figure out how to help this guy. Because...
Now, are you the game master in this?
No, I am not. I'm playing in it.
Neat.
I'm playing in it. And it's a game it's like we meet for like an hour every 2 weeks type thing. That's the only reason I was able to play in it, because it's not a very long one. But and one thing that's really, really great about this party is that we all are in this for our own reasons, and so we all were coming to our own unique ideas on how to save this guy or not. One of the characters is another paladin, but he is a paladin of the goddess of death. And so his idea of saving this paladin was he volunteered to be the executioner. And he was going to get so plastered drunk that he wasn't able to just hold the sword to execute the guy, was his idea. But we didn't know that until later. I mean, we saw him role-playing with the Grand Master of the Order, where he volunteered to be the executioner. And we're just like, wait, what? We want to save his life. What are you doing? But none of us were actually there, so we couldn't do anything. And then 2 other people went off to go talk to the Grand Master. And, of course, they couldn't get anywhere with him. And I was just like... We gotta do a different angle of this. This just isn't working. And so I went up. I was in a bar because, I'm a drunken fist monk. Yeah. And I talked to the bartender. I'm just like, so I'm traveling, visiting this city. What kind of information can you give me about, the leader of this order and whatnot? He's like, oh, well, there's the leader of the order. There's the Grand Master. And he only takes orders from, the head weaver of our order, who's over in this other temple. And I'm just like, oh, or who lives on top of this really dangerous mountain. And I'm just like, oh, new best friend, as I wrote down his name, and I wanted to go visit him. He's like, oh, but that's a week away. That's a week's journey by cart to get there. So and I'm like, oh, well, his execution is tomorrow. Well, and so I got the idea of going in to a local temple and having them cast Ascending to this weaver. And you know what sending is? It's a spell where you can send telepathically 25 words to somebody. It's actually really good for comedy stuff as well, just because a lot of times players aren't counting the words they're saying. And as the DM, I'll be like, okay, that was 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay. Ends right there. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, you get 25 words. That's it. Type thing. That's where the message ends. Yes. And they're like, crap, I guess I cast the spell again. I'm like, okay, well, count your words. But anyway, I go to this this temple, and my character, he is from an order of monks called the Sowers of the Sacred Flame. They worship the goddess of fire. Really, they call themselves the Imbibers of the Sacred Flame because they're a bunch of drunken fist monks. But they don't tell the world that they practice martial arts. They just make some of the best sake in the world. And they have been closed off to the rest of the world for hundreds of years. And I walk and I go up and I clean myself up, and the paladin has some abilities that help me clean up as well. And I cast the spell Prestidigitation, Thaumaturgy, to create a wreath of fire around my horns. Okay. And I go up and I introduce myself as Psycho, a representative of the Sowers of the Sacred Flame. And the guard outside the temple is just like, wait, your order is reestablishing connection with the rest of the world? I'm like, yes, yes, we are, and they have sent me here to meet with the high priestess of this, the high priest of this temple. And like, give me just a moment. And within minutes, I'm meeting with the high priestess of this temple, and I'm just like, look, and I'm totally BSing all of this, because while yes, I am from the Order of the Sacred Flame, I am not there for the reason I'm claiming to be there. Okay, I'm there for completely different reasons. That I know there are players in my group that listen to this podcast, so I don't want to tell them what those reasons are here on the podcast, because I already told them that I'm going to reveal kind of my backstory to them at the next session. But anyway, I'm talking to this high priestess, and she's just like, and I'm like, look, I'm on a journey, okay, and it's a very important journey that my order has sent me out on, and Sir Orion has been a very great asset to that journey, and I find it very, very hard to believe that he's a heretic. He has, in my eyes, he's done absolutely nothing wrong. And I was hoping to meet with the Grand Weaver in order to perhaps get a stay of execution, so we can go ahead and have a more in detail investigation to see what's going on. And the entire thing was, I'm not trying to prevent the execution from happening. If he's guilty, he's guilty. Mm-hmm. But I think we have to try to find a way to prove that he's not guilty. And these people really want to reestablish good communication, a good relationship with the Swords of the Sacred Flame. Uh-huh. And they're just like, give me just a moment. And so Breaker and I, the other paladin, were just kind of sitting there. And I guess our elven druid was with us as well, by the name of Taliesin. And we were just kind of sitting there waiting for her to come back. And he's like, so, that's not the reason you gave us while you were out in the world. So what's the real story? And I'm just like, there's a lot of people who can hear right now that I don't want to hear. I'll tell you when we're in a place where we don't have so many ears that can listen in. And he's just like, oh, fine, whatever. But yeah, we actually got permission from the High Weaver, who's actually on his way here. Oh, no. Who gave us a stay of execution to where we can go and plead the case of Sir Orion to the High Weaver, which is, he's going to be in a place that's going to be a week away by cart. So we're going to go ahead and get a cart and go to his place and plead the case of Sir Orion. Nice. And yeah, I get back to the party, and like they're all just like kind of distraught, being like, oh, that guy's such a jerk, he won't listen to us, what's going on, what? And like one of our players, in her backstory, she was actually rather close to Sir Orion, and then they had a falling out, but they've kind of recently started getting close again. Mm-hmm. And she was just distraught and just super heartbroken about the entire thing. But like, he's a good man. I know the Grandmaster's doing something dirty, doing something shady. There's no way that Orion would be a heathen. And I just walk in and is like, well, it's a good thing I got him a stay of execution, wasn't it? Or isn't it? And I give like the stay of execution to the guards, and they give it to the Grandmaster and stuff like that. And this drunken wizard just comes and gives me a tear, like a disgustingly tear snot-faced hug, just like, ah! And I'm just like, this is the only thing that you can do in role-playing. And one of the things I love about our group is that we have such animosity between our characters. But we also know that that's just role-playing, you know? I've played with a lot of people who it doesn't feel like it's role-playing, where it feels like it's actual real animosity. Yeah. Whereas for us, we're just like, no, that's just totally in my character to not agree with what your character wants to do. That's a terrible idea. But yeah, it's good. Like,
no, I'm just a dwarf and you're an elf, so I'm racist. So deal with it.
Exactly. Well, and then like every once in a while, the DM would be like, yeah, for some reason the tiefling hates the elf too. I'm like, no, that's just Andrew bleeding into the character. Andrew role plays dwarves. Most of the time I would roll a dwarf back in the day. But yeah, God, that's the only thing you can do in Dungeons and Dragons. You cannot recreate that in any other type of game. And that's not just Dungeons and Dragons. I mean like any tabletop role-playing game. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pitch D&D Adventuring League. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can go ahead and find it online, and there's a lot of places, even like where we live, there are places that will have Adventuring League tables. Okay. And the Adventuring League, this is for people who don't really know how to get into D&D, but they want to. Uh-huh. The Adventuring League, there's not a lot of role-playing that goes on there. Usually what they do is they have multiple tables. Uh-huh. And one table is for characters level 1 through 5. And then the next table is 6 through 10, 11 through 16, or 11 through 15, 16 through 20 type thing, okay? What they do is that they run modules. They run pre-made adventures.
Okay.
And a lot of time, people at the Adventurers Guild just go to roll dice and have fun doing that. There's not a lot of real role-playing going on there. But it's still a good place to meet people who role-play, so you can go ahead and meet people for yourself and maybe spin off into a group where you can go ahead and actually do some role-playing and not just rolling dice. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch D&D Adventurers Guild. But yeah, it's probably my favorite game. I absolutely adore Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm planning on playing it for years and years to come. So yeah, that is my recommendation of the week.
Okay, then. Leads us to our creator shout-out for the week. Mm-hmm. And this week, I'm going to shout out to the artist Robot Cat.
Robot Cat.
Robot Cat is somebody that I met at Anime Bonsai.
Oh, cool.
And they had a fantastic display of some pretty amazing artwork. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to link their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram feeds on our site page. So visit us at whittakerweekly.com and find episode 32. And you can get the links there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Well, I think that's it for this week. Real fast, let's go ahead and pull up the outro. Thanks so much for listening in this week. If you listened on YouTube, please feel free to like this episode and subscribe to our channel, and go ahead and ring that notification bell so you know when a new episode comes up. If you like what we do and want to support us, please spread the word of our podcast or even support us on Patreon. Where can they find us on social media?
Our site, whittakerweekly.com, currently has links to our Facebook page, Twitter account, Patreon page, and YouTube channel. We encourage all our listeners to follow us on the social media platform of their preference, and if there's one we're not on yet, please reach out to us, and we'll broaden our scope to include you.
Okay, and I want to go ahead and give a special thanks to Ben Coombs, who provided the artwork for our website and podcast.
And special thanks to Brazmataz for writing Dry Clock, the song we use for the intro and outro of this podcast.
Okay, well, if that's it, then I guess it's time for us to wrap up. I've been Andrew.
I've been Lee.
And this has been Whittaker Weekly. You guys have a great week.